Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. The massive international Tukwila-based law firm Luz Legal has shut down. The firm specialized in immigration cases. Alexandra Lozano branded herself as the lawyer of miracles. Yet rumors circled Lozano for years about how the firm operated. Now a lawsuit alleging misconduct is in the works, and thousands of Lozano's former clients are scrambling. We'll talk more about what could happen next in a minute, but first, let's get you caught up. New data from the Internal Revenue Service says King County lost thousands of residents to other counties in the state. Seattle Times reports that about 48,000 people left King County for other parts of Washington between 2022 and 2023, while only about 30,000 moved in from around the state. King County did gain about 5,000 residents from other states. A federal judge's order that requires Washington state health inspectors be allowed into Tacoma's ICE detention center begins tomorrow. The judge ruled the private contractor KUOW Group must give state inspectors access to most of the facility, with exceptions for areas controlled by federal immigration officials. The Washington State Nurses Association says the state has received more than 3,500 health and safety complaints from people in the detention center. KUOW Group has the option to appeal before Thursday. And a Capitol Hill restaurant owner is headed to federal court next week over accusations he pulled money out of employees' paychecks for 10 years without paying taxes. The Seattle Times reports that Rory McCormick, the owner of Capitol Hill's Single Shot Kitchen and Saloon, allegedly failed to pay about $1.5 million to the IRS. The restaurant hadn't announced any closure as of Tuesday. We're back with more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. Up until very recently, Tukwila was home to the so-called lawyer of miracles, Alexandra Lozano. At her firm, Luz Legal, Lozano often used religious imagery, like the Virgin de Guadalupe. Erica Sanchez and her husband believed in her and hired her to take on her husband's case. They had low expectations about his eligibility for a green card based on his situation.
He surely explained everything, and she oh, no, it's possible. Yeah, we could do this, really reassuring.
Initially, things were going well in her husband's case.
Because she did say in 6 months you have your work permit, and 1 year you have your residency, the green card. We're like, oh, wow, okay. But surely enough, in 6 months, he got the work permit. So we're like, oh, wow, so she's really good.
But the green card didn't come in a year. And as more and more time passed, the bills for Lozano's services piled up to thousands and thousands of dollars, and they weren't asked to meet in person anymore.
They started to ask for signatures on blank papers and scan them and send them to me via mail, but fast, a 1 day or 2 day shipping thing. So we did trust that process, and he did sign 3-4 papers blank with no date. Nothing, was just his signature on a white paper.
What Erica's husband didn't know then and still does not fully understand is what he was signing. That became very clear while preparing for his immigration interview. The statement he had to review included border crossings that never happened and that he said he wasn't prepared to answer for. And he's not the only one to see untrue information in an immigration application filed by Lozano. Multiple former clients allege that she falsified or exaggerated details in their applications.
So, how do you go to your interview feeling confident when this happens right before you go in? You know what I'm saying?
It didn't go well.
And then that's when more time passed by, and then he got a paper and that said that his case was being denied.
He then had to pay even more money and go to deportation court, where the lawyer showed up late. Now they have one more hearing left for a judge to decide if he can stay or if he'll get deported.
It's a really bad experience with her. I think we had never thought it would go this way. And then the amount of money we spend. So right now it's kind of we feel like our world is going to change completely, obviously, and just to think of that first something that a person did now our lifestyle is going to depend on what the judge decides, basically.
It's taken a toll on her and her husband. It's also been difficult to explain to their 3 children why following the law as best they can has led to this.
You know what? Don't worry. Just focus on your. How am I gonna focus if it can be that my dad's gonna be taken, and then we're gonna. But everything took a toll on the kids.
They wish Lozano's firm had been honest with them from the beginning. Now they're part of a civil mass action lawsuit against Lozano's firm.
I mean, if we're in this situation, unfortunately, we're really struggling, but we need to do something about it and not just let it be I guess, one more number. We need to, speak up so that everybody hears and stops giving the money to her. That she's just doesn't really care to do anything for the people.
And in the couple of months since the lawsuit started, Lozano gave up her license to practice and shuttered the firm, Luz Legal. Nina Shapiro has been following the story at the Seattle Times. She's here to explain what happened and what's next for Alexandra Lozano's former clients. Nina, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start by setting listeners up with a little background. Tell me about the scope and scale of Alexandra Lozano's former law firm, Luz Legal.
Yeah, so it is really astonishing how big this law firm grew. She was based here originally. She had a law firm whose headquarters was in Tukwila, but it spread nationally and even internationally. So it had 5 offices, including this one, and then 4 other major offices around the country. And then it had 3 international offices in Colombia, Argentina, and Mexico. And it was this multi-million-dollar operation. I got hold of a tax filing from 2022, so some years back. And by that time already, it was a $55 million operation.
Wow.
So the scale of it is just incredible. And then when the bar finally came out with its statement of allegations against Lozano, there were nearly 54,000 applications that had been filed with her name in USCIS, which is the big agency for filing green card applications.
In the last couple of months, as we mentioned there, Lozano gave up her law license and the firm shut down. What was going on there?
One of the biggest allegations is that the applications she was submitting on the behalf of clients were fraudulent. So she pitched herself as the lawyer who could do what other lawyers couldn't. In most cases, if you come here illegally, you have to leave the country to fix your status. But she had a slogan, "Fix without leaving," all this in Spanish, of course. She would say, all these other lawyers have told you you have to leave the U.S. No, that's not true. You don't have to leave the U.S. The kind of side door that she specialized in was this type of humanitarian visa that's known as VAWA, which is something that is under the Violence Against Women Act. What it does is protect people who are the subject of abuse by either their spouses or their adult children who are U.S. citizens or in some cases legal residents. What this is supposed to do is to allow people to petition immigration authorities on their own and not rely on their abusers to petition immigration authorities. So there was this avenue that could potentially allow people to fix their status without leaving. But the conditions are supposed to be that you're a victim of battery or extreme cruelty. And many clients, when I've gone back to interview them and in the lawsuit, say that in fact they were not a victim and they didn't understand really what this was all about, and that the claims that were made in their applications were not true. So that's one whole big kind of bucket of one of the problems that people have been alleging. There are a couple of other big problems. One is that some people were never eligible for green cards in the first place. and yet she was applying on their behalf. They were ineligible because of something called the permanent bar, which happens if you enter the U.S. illegally more than once and live in the U.S. a certain amount of time. And the reason why this is important is because if you apply for a green card and you're not eligible and you're subject to the permanent bar, you're disqualified, you can actually be put in deportation proceedings. And this is what has happened to some of her former clients. And remember all those 54,000 pending applications? So this is what people are really worried about. Like, are these people now at risk of deportation proceedings, possibly an ICE arrest? Meanwhile, they don't have a lawyer. The firm has shut down, and people are even having trouble getting hold of their files that were submitted on their behalf. So many people don't even know what was submitted on their behalf and whether it was true or not.
Wow. That is a lot. And in this current climate, honestly, probably terrifying for people who were her former clients. You talked to some of them. Let's talk a little bit about what they said about their case and where they feel they're at now.
There's a lot of anxiety about what they're going to do now. And remember, people have paid thousands of dollars already for these legal services that evaporated. So her fees were what other lawyers considered quite high, often about $15,000. So they've paid all this money and they need to find a new lawyer. So it really puts them in a difficult spot. And a lot of them are really angry.
I read in your reporting that one particular woman was very hurt that in her file was an accusation of battery that she said was not true. And that was painful for her.
It was painful for her and her husband. So this was a couple that, by all accounts, seemed pretty devoted to each other. But in her declaration to immigration authorities, it said that he was forcing her to have sex and was completely controlling in other ways. So they didn't actually realize this until years later when they went to a new attorney. And the new attorney said, "Do you realize what's in this declaration?" And, their jaws dropped, and the husband actually started crying.
What has Lozano said about the allegations?
She says they're untrue. She did not admit to the allegations when she resigned. When she has responded to complaints, I've seen some of those responses. For instance, to a complaint that she was encouraging a client to say that the client was abused. And she will say that she is using an innovative strategy. That's one thing, that she considers herself an innovative practitioner of law, and that many other attorneys underuse this strategy, and that she screams all the time for abuse because often victims don't know they're abused or maybe unwilling to say it. So she portrayed herself as bringing out this victimization that people might not even know about and making use of an immigration tool. That's a valid one. She also says that she's helped thousands of people. And I'm sure that some people have gotten green cards and many people have gotten work permits. So when you apply for a green card, you get typically a temporary work permit. So people got this temporary work permit and thought, hey, it's working, right? Like, I'm getting some legalization here. I can legally work now. But what they didn't always realize is that the real reckoning didn't come for years when their application was finally decided and when they could have that revoked and actually be put in deportation proceeding.
Wow. Okay. Nina, what questions do you still need answers to? What are you looking at next?
Well, I would definitely like to know where those investigations stand and whether they are going to result in any charges. Federal and state authorities have not been willing to say anything about that. I would like to know if the bar is going to do anything more to try and help clients. There have been a lot of questions about the bar's action and if they moved as quickly as they could have moved. I think there are questions about how this whole thing was handled, and we'll have to see if we're going to get answers to that. Still trying.
And the work goes on. Seattle Times reporter Nina Shapiro, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We reached out to Lozano's lawyer to get her side and haven't heard back. We did talk to one of the lawyers representing former Lozano clients, though. Attorney Omar Barraza is here to further unpack the impact and implications of this situation. He doesn't mince words.
It's a catastrophe. What's occurring now with these 35,000 or so clients that she had, who are probably all going to be denied, we have a huge catastrophe on our hands. As a community, and I think as a bar, I'm concerned about the implications of this for what people think of attorneys. We're not necessarily always held in the highest esteem. And, one could look at this situation and say, well, look, see, we told you so. These immigrants lied to get a benefit. And I can tell you that in many cases, they didn't even know what was being said in their name. And I think it also points to a bigger issue beyond immigration, and that is the American tendency for get-rich-quick schemes or American greed in terms of being able to take advantage of such a vulnerable population. They were ripe for the picking, you could say.
How would you advise former clients of Luz Legal or even vulnerable people who need immigration legal assistance right now?
Well, if you don't meet the attorney in person, there's a problem. A lot of these folks didn't even meet her in person. And I think that's a big red flag going into this. If someone's asking you to pay tens of thousands of dollars for a process that could result in your removal from the United States, you should reasonably expect to see the person in person and meet them and shake their hand before you engage in a pretty perilous process. And people need to obtain copies of their files. People need to request their files from immigration. And that's through the FOIA process.
What does this mean to you, this situation that you're unraveling here?
I think it's probably one of the best examples yet of showing how broken our immigration system is. We need to find solutions so that people aren't taken advantage of. And, the backdrop for this is that in some ways the government itself is a victim of this scheme. And the integrity of the systems that operate around immigration are also threatened and implicated in this. And I think it's done a lot of damage. And I'm hoping that not only can people recover some of their money, but that we can help them salvage their immigration cases. Because if someone has filed paperwork in your name and it turns out the information contained therein was fabricated or exaggerated, that could have complications or implications for you for the rest of your life. That's a really heavy toll. And so I'm hoping that we can overhaul the system, and I'm hoping that we can find a way to vindicate the interests of these folks that have been so damaged economically and in terms of their prospects for becoming legal at some point.
I wonder what would stop the federal government from going back through Lozano cases and reviewing them.
They're doing that. I met with a couple. They actually won their green cards with the assistance of Ms. Lozano. And when they returned from Mexico, they were pulled out of line. They were interrogated for about 3 hours, and they were told, don't get on an airplane because you're Lozano clients.
So the stakes are high for people who even have green cards at this point.
That's correct. I anticipate that the government is going to, and I hate to say this because I don't want to make people paranoid or any more worried than they already are. But I fully anticipate that the government is going to go back through and review every single one of Lozano's cases.
Barraza law attorney Omar Barraza, thank you so much for your expertise. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to Seattle Now. Take a moment to rate and review the show in your favorite podcast app. And before we go, a quick question. Have you changed how you eat because of the cyclospora outbreak? Tell us how. Share your answer in the KUOW app. Just open the menu and select Talk to Us. More at kuow.org/question. Today's episode was produced by Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Vaughn Jones, Andy Hurst, Anna Marie Yanni, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. Talk to you tonight for Evening Headlines.